A very good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for joining us today for the EPD workshop on environmental issues and challenges. I, Seema Vadhavan, take this opportunity to welcome you all on the behalf of Geeta Ratan International Business School on this virtual platform for interaction with Ms. Garima Mishra. Geeta Ratan International Business School was established in year 2004. It is affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, Delhi, and approved by AICTE, Ministry of HRD, Government of India for technical courses, and Bar Council of India for law courses. The institute conducts various courses, namely MBA, MBA International Business, MCA, BBA, BBA LLB, and BA LLB. The institute is accredited as Category A by NAC and assessed as Category A plus by State Fee Regulatory Committee and rated highest grading A by Joint Inspection Committee of Government of India, NCT, Delhi, and GGS-IP University. The institute has been rated Grade A by Academic Audit Cell of GGS-IP University consecutively for past 7 years. Geeta Ratan International Business School has also been rated twice, number 2, consecutively by Times B School Survey 2019 and 2020. Environmental issues are dramatically affecting our planet and depleting our national resources and straining our livelihood. These issues are mostly caused by water pollution, air pollution, solid waste, and so many others. Sustainability is the key element which can reduce these environmental issues and the degradation. So the objective of the workshop today is to make the students identify and accept the new sustainable ways of saving the environment from such degradation. In the perpetual pursuit to deliver this learning and offer a global exposure, Geeta Ratan International Business School is very delighted to organize such workshops, and today's workshop on environmental issues and challenges. To discuss upon the topic, as I said earlier, we have with us Ms. Manisha Sharma. We welcome you, ma'am. Ma'am is a development sector professional with over 15 years of experience. She has worked across various domains, including environment, water management, urban infrastructure, social development, skill development training, and capacity building. She has been involved in various prestigious government projects and international assignments as well for Government of Bhutan. Armed with her master's degree in environmental sciences and natural resource management from TERI, she started her career with CII. CII has given her hands-on experience for building the skills in the government interface, and there are various projects that ma'am has undertaken. To name a few, Swachh Bharat Mission, CSR project on Swachh Bharat Mission Abhiyan, which is a flagship program of Indian government focusing on behavioral change, sanitization, and waste management. Then second one that we can refer to would be capacity building and awareness generation on environment, friendly technologies through integrated approach for empowerment, local communities, conservation and ecology under the Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India. Public awareness and public participation activities under JICA assisted by Ganga Action Plan. Conducting the trainings of EMROOT, that is Atal Mission for Regeneration and Urban Transformation, a senior officer from urban local bodies in Uttar Pradesh. So to name a few, I'll keep on going on and on. There are many projects on which ma'am has worked upon. So for a further ado, I would ask ma'am to kindly start the session and enlighten the students on environmental issues and challenges. We welcome you, ma'am. I'll start.
Sure. Hi, good afternoon, all the students. Ma'am, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction and in covering in details of all the work that I have done. Let me start the session on the note that why I chose environment as a career option. All of us know that the environment is important. All of us know we need to plant more trees. All of us know that the air needs to be clean, water needs to be clean. But then what do we do about it? Since the time I was a child, I was very interested in sciences. As I passed 10th, the next best course of action was to choose the right career path. So in the year 1992, when I did my 10th, those times were different. Career options were not as many as today's students have. Then medicines obviously was the right course. Everybody did so. I also, started preparing for medical, but somewhere down the line, I knew that I had to be in something which was different, something which could really make an impact on ground. Medicines, all due respect to doctors, look at the way they have contributed in recent times, but then environment was where my heart was in. So after I finished my 12th, I did my graduation in public administration, and then I learned about this course in which was MSc program in environmental studies and natural resource management. The course really excited me. As I delved more, I realized the wonderful opportunities it was opening up. That's when, I decided that, yes, this is where I want to be. So I finished my 2 years course from TERI, which is located in New Delhi. And then I started my wonderful journey. And after spending about 15 years in the sector, environment still remains very, very core to my heart. The knowledge that I have gained in last 15 years, I'll share some bits of it. Lot of it is a lot of technical stuff, which may be a little high for your level, but I will try to keep the session very, very simple. That's why, I have kept the presentation very simple. I would like to make things as simple as possible because I understand the levels you are operating for. But let me tell you, what does environment mean to each of us? Why the life was possible on Earth? That's the first question on our existence. Life was possible on Earth because of certain conditions that were conducive at that point of time. Today, when there are so many missions to space going on, we still, after so many developments, after so thousand and thousand years, we still have not found any real trace of life anywhere. So in that matter, Earth is very, very fortunate to have those conditions which made life possible on Earth. Life on Earth became possible for a lot of factors. Oxygen was one factor. Water was another factor. So those of you who have studied sciences in school, of course, everybody studies science till 10th. So obviously you will know from your geography lessons that why life was possible on Earth. So if God has blessed us with such a beautiful life and such a beautiful planet, is it not our responsibility to keep it intact, to keep it growing, alive and kicking? But if we see the present circumstances around us, the reality is just the opposite. Every time, now we are about to begin we've just begun the month of October. So from October till February, Delhi literally becomes a furnace. Furnace in the sense that we see visible pollution. We are not able to, the visibility reduces a much. That's when people talk about pollution a lot. So pollution is, yes, it's a burning issue. It's a growing issue. Ma'am, previous slide, please. Yeah. So coming from the point that the life was possible on planet Earth, yes, it is absolutely our responsibility to let it remain. But is it so? No, it is not. What do we hear of? I just spoke about the pollution in Delhi when we see visible pollution. Earlier, people in 80s and 90s who worked in Delhi, who can still remember, they used to smell pollution. But right now we can see pollution. So obviously there is a lot which is going on and there is a lot which needs to be corrected. So Delhi pollution is one thing I spoke about. Another issue we keep on hearing a lot is climate change. Climate change is, of course, a very, very long-term drawn phenomena. It doesn't happen over 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, 200 years. The horizon is much, much longer. So obviously, but yes, there are certain factors which can escalate the climate change. What exactly is a climate change? Climate change is every region on Earth falls in a geographical zone. According to that geographical zone, there will be a temperature range, there will be a rainfall range, and there will be an overall weather and climate pattern. Now, how do you differentiate between weather and climate? Weather is a short-term phenomena, climate is a long-term phenomena. So climate zones, if those of you who remember their geography lessons, we can talk about the hot climate, the humid climate. Weather is a very, very short phenomena. So talking about the entire environmental zones or climate zones on Earth, there is a certain fixed temperature range the zone is supposed to have. But what happens if due to man-made factors, if due to human-induced activities, what can be those activities? Too much burning of fossil fuel, too much reliance on paper, too many vehicles around us, too many factories blowing smoke into air. So all these are some of the factors which eventually raises the level of carbon dioxide in atmosphere. So if we remember the entire pie chart of what atmosphere comprises of oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and there are a couple of other gases also. So there has to be, if you recollect, there has to be a certain percentage of oxygen in the air, and there has to be a certain percentage of carbon dioxide in the air. Suppose if by any factor, these levels are disturbed, so obviously it is going to cause an imbalance in the environment. So that is what exactly is climate change. So climate change is happening because of lot of human interventions, some of these activities I mentioned. And there are gases that are contributing to climate change: carbon dioxide, methane, carbon. So these gases are called GHGs, which is greenhouse gases. So it raises overall temperature of Earth, and the result is on north and south poles we have a permanent presence of ice. So the result of climate change is that the level of ice is going low. The icebergs are melting. So what happens if icebergs melt? Obviously, the coastal regions, for example, in India, if I talk about city of Mumbai, that falls on a coastal belt. So suppose if what happens if the level of sea really goes up, the entire Mumbai will drown in rain. Those of you who can recollect tsunami. Now, tsunami is a big earthquake that was induced inside the earth, and it came through water. And look at the damage that was caused on Earth. But the wave was such a big wave in nature that there was huge damage. So think of the damage if water level in sea goes up, it can cause. There are so many cities around the globe which are located on coastal beds. And obviously, these cities, they will submerge in water. These are some of the damage I spoke about. And apart from that, climate change has lot of other impact also. It can severely impact our agriculture production, because even plants, they need certain temperature to grow. So if climate change happens, if that imbalance is caused, obviously agricultural productivity will be hampered. So if we are disturbing our environment, if we are disturbing our agriculture productivity, if we are disturbing our rainfall pattern, don't you think that it will eventually impact lives? Whether or not what happens after 50 years to us, what happens after 100 years to us, whether or not the place where we are living, it will actually be livable. So if you imagine that scenario, obviously the scenario is very, very scary. And we definitely need to do a lot about it. Now, when I say we definitely need to do a lot about it, it comes at different levels. The first level is, of course, the citizen level. Irrespective of where you are working, what you are doing, each one of us has responsibility towards environment. We Indians, we traditionally have been in practice of worshipping nature. Look at the kind of shlokas or look at the kind of hymns that are there in our Vedas, it only speaks of one fact, that we really worshipped Mother Nature. But are we really practicing those things now? The very those trees, the very that air we prayed every day. Are we really respecting that? Or we have forgotten all that tradition, all that culture? So there is a big question mark there. So as a citizen, it's everyone's responsibility to keep environment clean, to ensure that we pass a good legacy to our future, to our coming generations. So there is a concept of sustainable development. We keep talking about sustainability. We keep talking about sustainable development. Sustainable development is what? Sustainable development is that you think of your present. Now, those people who will, there are some people who might question me that if we protect our environment, what happens to job creation? Should we stop opening factories? Should we stop producing? Should we stop opening industries? What happens to jobs? We will eventually die anyways. So the answer is sustainable development. That's where, sustainability comes into picture, where you produce or you use as much as you need for today, and you keep some reserve for future. Now, I will relate it with a couple of examples. Those of you who might come from rural background, if you go to fields of Punjab, there is a practice of just opening the tube well, and because the electricity is free, and electricity has made it very, very possible to tap deep into water tables and extract water. So what happens? Electricity free, water is available. So what do people do? They just open the taps and leave it. The fields are flooded. Those plants may not need that much water, but because electricity is there, you misuse. So the entire issue of water table going down the drain. Now, these are some issues which you keep, those of you who are in the habit of reading newspaper, you will, often come across these. That Delhi's water table is reducing. Gurgaon will not have any water after 30 years. So you keep hearing of these scenarios. What exactly is that? What is when water tables go down? Water table is go down because we extract more water. When rainfall happens, if there is soil, water will naturally seep in, and gradually, slowly, it will keep going down the earth. It will keep going down the earth, and then it reaches a level which is called water table. Now, there is a speed at which water will travel naturally. But if you are installing submersible pumps, if you are using tube wells, if you are using artificial means to draw water, in the short run you can, because the water is there. But if the water that you were supposed to take out in 10 years, you take out that water in 2 years, that is unsustainable development. That you use, but then don't misuse. Mahatma Gandhi rightly said that there is a lot if we are not greedy, but then nothing is enough if we are greedy. So we have to stop being greedy. We have to just use the resource as much as we need. Now, on this slide, I would like to spend a little more time. A lot of stuff I have already spoken about, but then our understanding around pollution should be at least somewhat clear after this session. Though we keep hearing pollution a lot, we have been listening to pollution since the time we were, little children, even nursery children, even KG children, even they are, these days they are aware of the pollution. So there are multiple aspects to even the pollution. So bit by bit, we will cover the pollution. First is air pollution. Now, I spoke about the issue of climate change. I little bit touched on the issue of water availability. So we will just try to link all that we discussed till now to this slide. So first is air pollution. What is air pollution? Air pollution, I just spoke about the single pie chart that, which can depict the constituent of gases in a molecule of Earth or atmosphere. What atmosphere comprises? So atmosphere comprises oxygen, it comprises carbon dioxide, it comprises other gases also. So naturally, if that level is disturbed, there is pollution. Why is pollution caused? So if we talk about the urban context, air pollution has a single important source, that is the burning. It can be burning of fossil fuels. It can be even burning of waste. So burning of waste is banned in Delhi. All of us know that. Still, in smaller areas where municipality is not so much active, still we see that it is standard practice that you accumulate waste and you simply burn it. If it burns, it goes away from your eyes and the issue of sanitation is over. But is it really over? No. When you burn the waste may comprise of many, just not leaves, just not soil, just not wrappers. It may comprise of harmful plastics. It may comprise of lot of other hazardous material, which if they are burnt, ultimately they will go up in air and it will increase the pollution level. If you cut more trees, air pollution happens. So there are lots and lots of factors due to which pollution happens. But what is the impact of air pollution? The clear impact that all of us can feel in our life, if you see little children in Delhi, unless until they are 5 years old, they often have respiratory issues. If there are senior citizens in family, they often develop respiratory issues. Respiratory issues in a sense that many of them may find it difficult to breathe in certain times. Many of them may develop asthma. So why do these things happen? These things happen because we are breathing in polluted air. Just the way food is important for us, just the way water is important for us, the most important thing without which we can't even survive 5 minutes, that is air. If you stay hungry, you can still go on for 2-3 days. Without food and water, still you will be alive. 1 to 2 days minimum you can manage. But do you think you can manage without breathing? No. So the air we breathe, if that is polluted, obviously it is impacting our lives. It is impacting our overall health. I spoke about asthma. I spoke about breathing problem. One more factor which we hear about a lot is cancer. Why is it that the incidence of cancer is going higher and higher? Earlier, when I was a child, I heard of cancer only in movies. There were movies that were made around this theme, but other than that, nobody in our direct families or friends never thought or never had this disease. But today, if we see, I'm sure each one of us knows someone close, either from friend circle or from office or from family, who is suffering from cancer. So why is the incidence of cancer going up so much? Of course, it comes from pollution. When harmful things are burnt, when harmful things go up in the air, they just don't disappear. They remain there. They remain suspended there, and these can be carcinogenic. Meaning of carcinogenic is cancer causing. So the entire issue of environment is not something superficial. It's not something that others should do. That is why I keep telling everyone, it's each one of our responsibility to do. Ultimately, after 100 years, after 200 years, we are not sure what will happen to Earth. Second is the issue of water. Now, of course, I keep coming back to the issue of Delhi because that's where I think you'll be able to relate to the problem more. Otherwise, so far as I am concerned, I have worked pan-India. I worked in many states, but I keep coming to Delhi because you have been born and brought up in Delhi and you can relate with the place more. So many of you in summer months might be facing water shortage, might be facing water scarcity. Even the issue of water scarcity, there is a bigger issue of quality. 20 years before, there were no ROs. ROs, by RO I mean reverse osmosis technology, which is used to treat water. So today when you visit homes, ROs have become so popular. Why is there need to install ROs everywhere? There are two factors. First is the water has become very impure, because if you test water, you can actually see that the TDS level is not what it is supposed to be. And obviously, if you drink that water, you will fall sick. The bacteria may be there, the viruses may be there. So obviously, the bacterial infection can be there. So presence of pathogens, presence of harmful chemicals, We have to obviously treat water. But was it the scenario even 20 years before? No, that was not the case. When I grew up, we used to drink tap water. There were specific hours in which the supply came. So that was supposed to be the drinking water. We had no concept of ROs. The waters were filled in pots. They were kept in fridge bottles, but no concept of ROs. Today, almost every house has RO or some other cleaning technology. This speaks of one fact that water has become very polluted. So obviously the issue of water scarcity is there when the water is not available. So you see advertisements of women who keep pots on their head and walk miles and miles to fetch 2 or 3 pots of water every day. You still have those kind of people living in India. We might be fortunate enough that we open the tap and the water comes, but everybody in India is not that fortunate enough. And scarcity is something for which a lot of solutions are required. But at least at our end, how much we can contribute, each one of us can. And of course, I don't need to tell you that how you can save water. These are simple measures. Wherever possible, use less. Wherever possible, recycle, reduce. All those concepts, even schools teach you. So I will not go too much there. So I spoke about issue of air pollution. I spoke about issue of water pollution. Just the way air and water is polluted, even soil is polluted. How does soil get polluted? Soil gets polluted by, for example, by use of excess fertilizers, excess pesticides. The last bit is the noise pollution. Now, noise pollution, we may not be affected so much instantly like we are affected by air and water pollution, but then noise pollution also has an impact on not only on our own health, it also impacts there are living organisms, there are living beings which are living. For example, bees. So if noise pollution goes up, or you see mobile towers, if there are too many mobile towers, the population of bees goes down. Bees, the honey bee or the local bee that we see, if the population goes down. So obviously noise pollution has to be controlled, and obviously there is an obvious impact on our eardrums and all. Just a moment. Ma'am, next slide, please. Now, each one of you, I suppose, must be active on social media, either on Instagram or on Facebook, and we often see videos of how plastic has invaded our lives so much. So what do you see in this picture? In this picture is of an ocean bed, ocean which is far, far away from human lives. Still, what do you see in the picture? In the picture, there is a turtle and there are polythenes which are floating around. What does this picture tell you? This picture tells you the extent of plastic pollution which has invaded our water bodies, which has invaded the water biota. How did it reach there? It's a very, very small frame. Still, you see at least 5 polybags. So how did it reach there? Have we ever thought the kind of items or the kind of products we have started using so much? When I was a child, my grandparents, my parents, when they went to market, they always carried a bag. There was no concept of polythene culture. But gradually, as the plastic as such was invented, and different versions of plastic, different grades of plastic, which kept getting invented. So 1949 is the timeline I'm talking about, that the polymer, somewhere around 1800 something, the first polymer was built, and gradually in 100 years, the plastic production increased to so much an extent that today we cannot imagine our lives without plastics. So right from the morning you get up till the time you go off to sleep, if you close your eyes and if you just think of the amount of plastic you use in a single day, you will be amazed at the volumes, and think of the population. India's population is today at 130 crore. We are one of the highest populated nations in the world. And if we keep consuming these products, look at the quantum of waste that we will be generating. Now, right when I began the session, ma'am spoke about the issue of the solid waste. Now, when you think about solid waste, everybody wants to live in clean city. So in this picture, you are seeing two pictures. One is there is a truck which is carrying waste, and then before the truck, you see three bins. In the second picture is of India Gate. In the half frame, you see the polluted air, and the half frame is clean air. So if we talk about keeping our cities clean, and if we talk about keeping our cities pollution free, there are a lot of efforts that are required by the government and by the citizens. So in the previous slide, I spoke about plastics, and particularly irregulated use of solid waste is what is impacting our cities. Those of you who have gone outside India, who have traveled outside India, when we come back to India, one thing we notice, if at all we go to good countries, we come back and we say, oh, India is so dirty. Now, why is India so dirty? Have you ever thought? The dirty is because we dirty it. 130 crore of population. If everybody thinks that somebody else will clean my dirt, do you think it is ever going to happen? Or do you think any government can manage? No government can manage unless until citizens became aware. So in 2014, when Swachh Bharat Mission was launched, since then, there has been a lot of awareness on Swachhata, a lot of awareness on cleanliness and sanitation. And today we speak about things like keeping our cities clean. We talk of plastic so much. So the previous slide I showed on plastic waste is something that all of us should know the impact. Why? I spoke about, now when I spoke about the burning of waste, plastic, if you really burn, it really impacts the air quality. And the incidence of high cancer, it is related to that point also. So plastics have to be really managed well in our cities. So coming back to this picture that you are seeing, the first picture of clean city, there are three bins. What do these three bins signify? One bin is a blue bin. The middle bin is a red bin. And the first bin is a green bin. What does these green bins signify? These bins signify that the waste has to be segregated. What is segregation? Segregation is when you separate. What do we do today? Whatever garbage, whatever waste is generated in our homes, we simply throw it in one dustbin, and next day the NDMC or the municipal vehicle comes and collects it. The waste goes away from our house. We think our house is clean. We think our house is pollution free. But where is that waste going? That entire waste, which will have organic also, which can have broken metal pieces, which can have broken glass, which can even have batteries. So everything is mixed together. Where is it finally going? It goes to landfills. What are landfills? Landfills are huge tract of land where you keep dumping all the garbage or waste. And when it reaches a level, either that waste is burnt or you simply cover it. It keeps going down and then you make a big mountain out of it. So even if you talk about Delhi, those of you who live towards East Delhi side would have often seen Ghazipur landfill. So Ghazipur is a huge. There are huge piles and piles of garbage. Similarly, towards North Delhi also, and then even the IT park that you see, it is built on the waste. But is it really an efficient way of doing it? That you keep collecting waste, you dump it, and then you dig a big pit and you dump the entire waste. Is it really how you are supposed to do it? No, that's not how it happens in developed countries. In developed countries, there is concept of collection, there is concept of segregation. Everybody segregates their waste. So that's where, these bins come very, very handy. So all of us, now we live in our homes, we have dustbins in our homes. Is it not our responsibility to segregate waste? Why should we segregate waste? Because waste is also an opportunity. There are a lot of us, who see Raddi Walas, who see Kabadi Walas. Have we ever thought that why that chap comes to our house, he buys old newspaper, he buys old stuff and gives us money? Have we ever thought that why is he giving us money to take our waste? He is giving us money because that waste is resource for him. So if we are able to segregate our waste and take out useful ones, there are robust recycling technologies available. India is very, very rich on that. There is a huge informal sector which is working, which utilizes that waste, converts it into something useful. So for example, if I'll again give example of plastics. So if you don't throw plastics irresponsibly, now many of us, we are in habit of carrying bottles or buying bottles. So this water bottle culture, earlier it was not there. Now, because you perceive that water you drink outside may be harmful for you, whenever you feel thirsty and you don't have water, you buy a water bottle. But if you buy a water bottle, how do you dispose it of? What you should do? Should you simply chuck it into the dustbin? One single dustbin? No. If you are able to throw it in a separate bin, so even in Delhi, if you look around, the government has installed the blue and green bins. Now the dual bins is the green bin is for organic waste and the blue is for the paper, plastic. So if you separate it, that becomes a resource. So there is an informal sector which picks up bottles, which collects it, recycles it, converts it into a granules, and then something else can be made out of it. So that is the concept of circular economy. So if waste is problem for you, waste is resource for you also. So plastic waste particularly I spoke about because I'm doing this very interesting project right now in city of Agra. There is an international funding agency which is involved here, and in next 2 years, we are targeting to tackle plastic waste in Agra city and make it a useful, successful model. And plastic is something which we see, most of the waste you see, or most of the litter that you see around you, it is these polythenes, it is the biscuit wrappers, the Maggie wrappers, and all those things which you see around. So how do you remove that? If you go outside, you say that those countries are very beautiful, and when you come back, you say India is dirty. But why is India dirty? Has something been done about it? Now, of course, it is government's responsibility. Government has made a lot of environmental laws. When it comes to making laws, I think India is one of the countries which is really, really ahead. So there is a timeline that you are seeing in front of you. The important environmental laws I will talk about. First is the National Green Tribunal Act 2010, the NGT. We keep listening about NGT, that NGT has banned this, NGT has put a ban on that. So what exactly is National Green Tribunal? So it is to safeguard interest, obviously, of our environment, keeping us protected, and then through NGT, a lot of activities which may be polluting in nature is stopped. In 1981, India came up with the Air Pollution Act, which speaks about prevention and control of pollution. Second is the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, which happened in 1974. Before that, Wildlife Protection Act came, which was in 1972. Wildlife is also a part of biodiversity. Human beings are so selfish, they never think beyond themselves. So we may think of air because we breathe in air. You may think of water because you drink water. But is it not our responsibility to think of wildlife as well? Why do you think of wildlife? We don't live around tigers. We don't live around elephants. Why do you think of them? Why do you need to protect them? Because there is a balance nature has made. If you disturb that balance, sooner or later it will come back to you. So the way we keep destroying, or we keep killing wildlife around us, okay, it might not impact you directly, but somewhere down the line, in the longer run, it will surely impact you. The Forest Conservation Act came in 1980. Obviously, we need to protect our forest. Now, because population is growing at a very, very fast pace, you need to grow more food. You need, for providing jobs, you need to set up factories, schools, colleges. So where does that land come from? The land comes from clearing the existing forest cover. So the way the entire forest were being destroyed, the government of India took notice of it and they set up the Forest Conservation Act. So today, if you have to set up something on land, there are clear regulations to drive that. You just can't simply take a land, remove 200 trees from there and set up your factory. In case it is done, there is a process for it. And in case if trees have to be cut, then you have to do compensatory act, that you have to plant some more trees somewhere else. So there is a clear Forest Conservation Act to protect our forest. Then there is a Public Liability Insurance Act, because ultimately environment impacts our health, and health and insurance are linked together. Then the Biological Diversity Act, it is somewhat very similar to the Wildlife Protection Act. And then there is a Coastal Regulation Zone Notification. So even on coastal belt, there is a way that there is an environmental law in India. So as far as environmental laws are concerned, India is very, very, very ahead of its time, and we really established laws, but then implementation may always be an issue. So today, when you think about the tigers and when you think about the elephants, we recently learned about this elephant which was killed in Kerala. So we are inherently very, very cruel to wildlife, and if you violate these, there are serious punishments you can do. But then law takes its own course. Law at times it's slow, so these cases keep on dragging for years. So in terms of establishing the regulatory framework, Government of India has done well, but then implementation is something where there's a huge scope to improve. Ma'am, next slide, please. And can we move to the next slide? Thank you. So while I spoke about the issue of waste, the issue of waste is very, very important, because the kind of material which has invaded our lives, even if we look 100 years back, there was no plastic. There were very, very few batteries. There were definitely not harmful chemicals around. There were not many pesticides. Agriculture was very, very organic in nature. So the kind of inventions that have happened, especially in last 200 or 300 years especially after industrial revolution, a lot of harmful chemicals, a lot of harmful stuff has invaded our lives, and there has to be a way to dispose of. So if you follow the entire list of hazardous waste management, first is the handling and transboundary rules. This is basically country to country. So this is India as a developing country is being used by many developed countries to treat their harmful waste. So that's why it speaks of transboundary. I will not cover it in much detail. I would like to cover other issues where the understanding may be better, because we have limited time. Biomedical waste, obviously, because when you talk about medicines, when you talk about the nature of biological waste that are created, so hospitals have a very, very important role to play. We see how in COVID times, how the entire pandemic has panned out, and so many people have been impacted. And that's when, the hospital waste is a very, very important area, which can potentially cause more damage. So if you irresponsibly dispose of your hospital waste, it can end up polluting water bodies, it can end up polluting soil, it can end up causing harm to human lives. Municipal solid waste. So I briefly touched on plastic waste. I briefly touched on the issue of the other harmful waste that maybe if mixed with municipal solid waste, they definitely pollute our environment a lot. Then e-waste. Now, particularly in last 20 years, look at the way the usage of laptops, the usage of phones, tabs has increased. Earlier, very, very rich people could afford mobile phone. I think I'm talking about 98, 99. Very, very few people could afford mobile phones. But today, if you see, Almost every student has a mobile phone in their hand, and that too at all price points. There are cheaper versions, there are expensive versions, but what is the result? The result is everybody is there. For everyone, getting access to mobile phone is very, very easy. And then these gadgets come with a specific life. For laptops, it can be 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, maybe less. For phones, it can be, but then once it lives its life, its shelf life, what happens to that waste? Do you just throw that mobile? How do you dispose of? Because mobile batteries, if you talk about laptop, there are elements that are used which may really damage the environment a lot. There are harmful elements which are used in the integrated circuits of laptop. So there has to be a very, very responsible way of disposing of the e-waste. So e-waste typically comprises the waste that is created out of laptops, the mobiles, tabs, so electronic waste. So that's how the term e-waste has come. So all of us do that. So next time, if you think you don't need a phone, please dispose it off very, very responsibly. That's why you should always just not be in habit of throwing your waste in the normal dustbin. Be in habit of recycling, or get into habit of giving it to someone. For example, kabadi wala, raddi wala, because he will ensure that the entire product is very, very responsibly treated, rather than just disposed of and it finally lands into landfills. Now, when I spoke about plastic waste, remember I spoke about the issue of packaging, the biscuits wrappers, the Maggi wrappers, and how if we look around the entire litter, or why our cities are so dirty. Our cities are dirty because you see a lot of packaging stuff. People just open their packet of chips, eat it, and then just throw it. So that is why you see so much visible waste. Now, many of you would ask me, what is the concept of extended producer responsibility? So it's a new concept that emerging. So at the end of this session, when I was designing the entire presentation, I did not only wanted to talk about environment on something which you already covered in schools, because schools are covering environment syllabus a lot, and you guys are very, very young. So I assume that many of you would know about environment and pollution and stuff like that. So in this session, I wanted to help you understand the key terms that are emerging, and the key terms you should be aware of, which government of India, which our governments are doing, which our corporates are doing. So EPR exactly comes from that. Now, if you read this word, extended producer responsibility. Producer is who? Who is a producer? Who manufactures something? Who makes something? So let's say if we talk about a biscuit wrapper, a Britannia biscuit wrapper. Now, Britannia is the company which is making the biscuit. You have bought it. The company has made it, and you have bought it. Ma'am, previous slide, please. The company makes the product, you consume, you throw it, and it lands into landfill. Now, the concept of EPR tells that the responsibility of company who is generating that packaging material does not end by selling that product. The company responsibility is during the complete life cycle. Now, what is life cycle? Till the time it is manufactured, till the time it goes away from our eyes and from the environment. So the company has full responsibility during its entire life cycle. Now, how do companies do it? They make tons and tons of biscuits, Maggi, dals, for everything we use so much of packaging. What we call multi-layer packaging, MLPs. MLPs are the maximum stuff that is causing pollution, particularly on plastic. So Government of India says that if you manufacture plastic waste, it is your responsibility to bring it back from the system. Now, companies cannot do it. Their job is to make biscuit and sell it. So there are companies which are emerging, which help treat that MLP. That entire MLP, that entire plastic waste, they collect from the system. And the best is it is sent to a cement plant. In cement plant, everything gets incinerated. It just vanishes. It is a co-processing material. The cement plant issues a certificate to that small company which collected that plastic waste, and this small company goes to the big company, shows them the certificates, and they get money. So somebody else is doing cleaning stuff for you, is pulling back the packaging material, but then you get paid for it. So that's extended producer responsibility. Simply speaking, your responsibility does not end at manufacturing or selling. Your responsibility, the company's responsibility, is even in disposing of that material responsibility. So EPR, people are talking a lot about it. We will see more action on this space. Ma'am, next slide, please. So this chart, those of you who might be interested in EPR, because then EPR business models are coming. Those of you who choose to do a job, now environment sector itself offers very, very interesting opportunities. NGOs is one segment you can go into, but NGOs operate at a more of an awareness level, which is also important. But then the problem of pollution or the problem of environment can be solved with a lot of technology. The same technology which pollutes, same technology can be utilized to solve the problem also. So EPR is an emerging concept. Those of you, let's say, who want to make a career in sustainability, who want to do an MBA sustainability, or you who want to get into environment, there are a lot of job opportunities which are emerging, because as and when the regulations around us increase, that's when you need more workforce, that's when you need more resources. So obviously it's a very, very interesting career opportunity for you. Ma'am, next slide, please. CSR. So now I spoke about EPR. Those of you who have interest can Google and learn more on EPR thing. CSR. Now, a lot of pollution happens because production has to happen. Agriculture production is one thing, but then there is a lot of material production. We wear clothes, we need bags, we need shoes, we need phones, we need so much. And companies have to be set up to offer more jobs, and then to make products and services which eventually runs our lives. So the same company, now a company's responsibility is of course to make profit, but then a company has a social and environmental responsibility also. I will cite one incident which was like a watershed event in the history of India. In the year 1984, on one night, on a chilly night in the city of Bhopal, there was a plant, and methyl isocyanate gas. There was an industrial disaster. That gas leaked into city. Overnight, lots of people died, including animals also died. And even sitting in 2020, there are children who are born and who have deformities, because this methyl isocyanate gas was so poisonous in nature. It not only gave immediate death, it ensured that the future generation will keep getting born with deformities. So think of the kind of damage if any such irresponsible action can cause. So the company which was responsible for doing this, I would say not responsible, or the company in whose plant this happened, the Union Carbide does not operate in India anymore. There was a huge furor in the year. And then Bhopal gas tragedy. That tragedy, if you Google Bhopal gas tragedy, it sort of became a watershed event in India. And that's when government realized that they have to be really responsible around industries. So there are lot many industries. So HCL makes laptops. Now HCL invests. Why do you think that so many companies keep talking about planting more trees? Why do companies talk about planting more trees? Obviously, because Government of India has made it mandatorily. In the year 2013, there is a Companies Act which drives all the companies. So in the year 2013, there was an amendment made which made companies with certain specific turnover or net worth or net profit responsible for devoting 2% of their profit every year to these social and environmental activities. So that is why you see Airtel does something, Tata does something. There are so many people do social and environmental activities. So these social and environmental activities are done because many companies are very responsible in nature, but also because Government of India has made it mandatorily that if you have achieved a certain mark, you have to deploy 2% of your profit to these activities. So corporate social responsibility. So big corporate house like HUL, ITC, which are really big in nature. They set up their foundation. They do a lot of their development activities, and many of these activities are in the field of environment. In the field of environment, obviously, plantation activities are done. Many companies are putting money, have done a lot of activities on Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, which was in a way related to environment. A lot of companies in their own, so this presentation also speaks about environmental systems. So when you speak about the entire gamut of stuff, the pollution, EPR, CSR, you obviously get confused that how do we actually make a system around it? So big companies make a system around it, which is called environmental system, where they list out all the steps they need to do to ensure that the environmental norms are being followed in their companies. So there is a different department which takes care of it. Usually EHS. These departments are called EHS departments, Environment, Health and Safety. Their responsibility is to ensure that production and everything is happening as per laws. Next slide, please. So here you see there is a campaign going on where you see 2 corporate employees planting trees. Next slide, please. So on this note, I would just leave the house open for any question and answer. I will just in 2 lines summarize what I tried to cover in this session. So I, of course, covered about the issue of pollution, how it is impacting, what all small measures which can be used. So look, there are a lot of awareness activities which are happening around you. Government puts up banners, posters, आप पॉलिथीन मत यूज कीजिए, बैग्स कैरी कीजिए, पेपर मत यूज कीजिए. So look at that messaging very carefully and be a responsible citizen. As a company, there is a larger legal framework, there is a larger regulatory framework which you have to adhere to if you are into that kind of a job. So environment becomes very important there. So you have a citizen responsibility, you have a corporate responsibility, and then there is a government responsibility. So everybody, if we do our jobs well, if we stop being selfish, if we stop being greedy, I think we can definitely make our world more beautiful, more clean, and more green. So thanks so much. So now the house is open for questions. I would like to take up any questions, and I would like in my best abilities to answer them.
Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful session. So we have few questions coming in from the students, and the first question that comes from one of the students is, how
ma'am, your voice is a little, I'm not able to hear correctly, fully.
Okay. Let me just check. If better now?
Better now? No.
Is it better now?
I can hear, but it's okay. We can go ahead.
Okay. So the question that is there for one of the students is, how is polluted groundwater being treated to be clean?
So how can polluted groundwater be clean? Is that the question?
Yes.
So ma'am, if groundwater gets polluted, it is very expensive to treat it. So if you look at map of India, if you really look at map of India, there are zones where you see arsenic contamination. There are zones where you see different kind of contamination. Wells maybe arsenic contamination particularly is a cause of worry because it causes serious deformities if you drink that water. So once harmful chemicals enter groundwater, it is very expensive. It is next to impossible to treat it. So the better strategy is preventing that damage. There are treatments available. There are, let's say, chemicals available which you can put into system. and treat, for example, I spoke about arsenic contamination, but the treatment is very, very expensive. And given our nature that India is very, very rural centric, there are villages, and especially if you see these contaminated belts, if you look at the groundwater map of India, these maps, you will typically see these places are located in MP, these places are located in West Bengal, and typically in village areas. So there, taking that technology may become very, very difficult. Government reach may be very, very difficult. So best strategy is to prevent it. Prevention of groundwater is a better strategy than treatment. So how can you prevent it? Use of less fertilizers, use of less pesticides, not using too much water, because if everything combines together, there is a word known as runoff. So the entire mixture of chemicals, fertilizers, water, it just runs off. Finally, it ends into lakes, river bodies, and finally the end destination is groundwater. So the best strategy is to minimize the use of chemicals in our life, particularly in agricultural production. Okay. That is where the groundwater contamination is coming from. Industries have to be regulated because many times effluents that are coming out of industry, it is simply disposed of, not treated. So another strategy to tackle it, set up common effluent treatment plants. So you will come across this word called CETPs. So typically in big industrial belts, these common treatment plants are set up, which are like a common facility because treatment plants are expensive. Small industries cannot afford it. So better strategy is that they combine and they set up a plan. So these are some of the strategies which can be used.
Thank you. One more question that comes in place. Extended producer responsibility helps to make people more aware about the conservation of environment. And these are mostly taken care by the company. So how will a consumer get to know about it?
Very good question, ma'am. In fact, I'm happy that students are so inquisitive about it. I'm very happy to, in fact, especially answer this question. See, EPR as a concept, I especially spoke about EPR in this presentation because now we've started talking about it. So we can't ban things. We need packaging. If we don't use plastic packaging, what is the alternative? We use paper. That is more damaging to the environment. So corporates realize that, okay, we need to use packaging to deliver food because plastic packaging comes with certain advantages, but then it has to be removed from the system. So if you talk about the startup segment, the startup scene in India, there are a lot of startups, there are a lot of young guys, engineers who are making such wonderful projects because I'm working with a lot of them. So that is why I gave example of this project in Agra. So in Agra, for example, we are running a plastic challenge. We are inviting companies to come and work on ground because companies won't be able to do it. How do you expect a Hindustan Lever to collect all the Maggi wrapper, or how do you expect Nestle to collect all Maggi wrappers from waste? They won't be able to do it. So it is trying to build strength. So India has a very robust network of kabadiwalas, raddiwalas, rack pickers. So they are utilized to collect that garbage. The end destination is you have to send it to cement plants because they can't be treated. These packaging items cannot be treated. Bottles can be treated. For example, water bottle can be recycled. There are a lot of plastic comes into 7 grades. So except the multi-layer packaging, which we use for example, biscuits, wrappers and all those things, they can't be treated. Their only destination is you take it to cement plant. So there are small companies who are acting like an innovation center. Many of these are startups. Many of these are established players in the waste segment. So they collect all these waste. They send it to cement plants. Cement plants give them a certificate. They show this certificate to Nestle, and Nestle gives them money. So indirectly, corporates are doing it. So there is an entire ecosystem that is being built in India. And as the entire question on how do consumers know. Now, marketing strategy, अगर आप बहुत पहले के marketing strategies देखें और आज के marketing strategies देखें, so big companies really focus a lot on branding. And one of the branding tool, let me tell you, will be environmental awareness for sure. As and when our education levels increase, we become more aware on environment. Companies will have to sit back and take notice. And you will see that, there are campaigns which will be run on environment. So they will talk about these stuff. So that development is yet to come. So for next 5 years, 10 years, you watch out the space, and there is a lot of interesting action that will happen on EPR.
So as you said that there is an interesting option coming up in future, next 5 years. The next question is related to this. And it says, if you can give us some career option to be associated
career
with
options.
ERP. Yes.
Very, very, very. In fact, I'm happy that a lot of interesting questions are coming up. So, in environment is really a great career option. So, there are graduate level courses also available. There are master's level courses available. So, for example, I am passed out of TERI Delhi. So, TERI is the Energy and Resources Institute. It is located in Basant Kunj. There is NERI Nagpur, which offers environmental engineering course. So if you talk about environment, there are two kinds of courses. One is hardcore engineering, where typically all these engineering colleges, they offer the engineering BTech in environment also. But that is in engineering. So most of the environment professionals typically you see come from engineering background. But then only engineering solutions cannot solve the problem of waste. There is an awareness component. There is a management concept. So for example, I am from environment management course. I'm not a qualified engineer, because I don't make plants, I don't design plants, but then I manage projects. I put resources together. So engineering is one option, management is one option, and then doing MSW, so Masters in Social Work. So when you do Masters in Social Work, many times you will get to work on ground projects which are on environmental awareness, plant trees, prevent pollution, educate people about it. So MSW is also an interesting option through which the career to environment opens up.
Okay. So that's all the questions that we have from this. And thank you so much for enlightening the students with the new concepts coming up and giving them awareness about it. So on behalf of Geeta Ratan International Business School, I would like to extend my gratitude towards you for joining us for this session and enlightening the students with your words. Thank you, ma'am. And thank you everybody for joining for the event.
Thank you very much, ma'am, and thank you all students. Though I could not see, the best is, when I get to spend time in the class and when I can actually see faces. This is not a very, very, a lively, not very interactive session. That's how I want it to be. That's how my previous sessions have been. But nevertheless, whatever challenges we had today, I hope the message that I was trying to put across at least reached some of you. And I will end at a note that whatever big things we may do in life, let's do small steps, at least whatever is possible in our reach. So use less plastic, definitely. Get into habit of taking your water bottles, get into habit of carrying your bags. So just try to reduce as much waste as possible and try to plant more trees, more green, do not burn waste. So just rather than doing big stuff, waiting for the day when we do big things, just keep doing small things. So if everybody does these small things, I think the impact will be much larger. I wish you all the best for your life, for your careers, and it was great today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.